Hello, everybody, and welcome to today's Intel Partner Alliance webinar. Today, we are introducing the all-new Intel Xeon E processors, which previously were codenamed Rocket Lake. My name is Siobhan Mullen. I am the product line director for our Intel Xeon E processors, and I'll be your host and moderator today. Before we begin, I would like to share a few brief announcements. Partners who have joined us through the Intel Partner University will earn 7 training credits for your attendance today. This webinar is being recorded and will be made available on demand in the next 7 to 10 business days. Partners can earn 5 training credits for viewing on demand. We really would like today's webinar to be interactive. Please disable any other applications and browser activities as they may interfere with the aspects of your webinar features. To increase the view of your presentation, please click the view icon at the top right of the Zoom window and select full screen, or you can click Alt plus F. Participants will be in a listen-only mode. You may ask a question at any time. And again, as I asked, please, we want this to be interactive, so please go ahead and submit any questions. We'd love to answer them. And to actually submit your questions, please select the Q&A icon, which is in the menu bar at the bottom of the Zoom window. Please be sure to submit your question to all panelists so that our support team can view and respond to your questions. Well, we will do our best to answer as many questions as we can within the remaining time allowed, or you can ask them during any point, and I will try and ask Brian the questions. If we were not able to get to them, we will respond by email post the presentation. Today's speaker will be Brian Cassilis. Brian is the Intel Xeon E product line manager, and so now I'll hand it off to him. He'll kick off the materials.
Thank you, Siobhan. So we're going to go through this presentation on the new Xeon E processors, which were just launched last month. So the Xeon E-2300 processors feature 3 main areas. First is enhanced performance. So this allows up to a 17% performance improvement over the prior generation. Frequencies can go as high as 5.1 gigahertz with the Intel Turbo Boost technology, and you can support up to 128 gigabits of DDR4 memory with speeds up to 3200 MTS. It has greater expandability, so it has up to 44 total PCI lanes, and 20 of those can be PCI 4.0 or PCI Gen.4 as it used to be called. And it has up to 13 total USB 3.2 ports. It also has support for direct Gen 12 graphics for local display. In terms of manageability, it has SPS 6 firmware support with Intel Node Manager. Can also support ME15 with the Intel AMT version of the platform, and also has support for Intel SGX. So these are 3 key areas, and we'll step through these and some other details. And again, this processor family launched last month on September 8th, and there are various platforms available from our partners right now. So in terms of the landscape, who's using the Xeon E processors? Primarily in small business and in cloud services. So we'll go through each of these, but small business applications, on-prem servers, typically business critical applications like email, other types of hosting for that. And cloud services, typically bare metal instances where they're just hosting the bare metal and providing code and data security. So these are very effective solutions for that. And we'll go through details on each of those. So for small businesses, why would you be interested in upgrading now for Xeon E? First is reducing your risks, so you can help protect your business data from the latest security threats with modern server hardware features and your OS patches. The Intel E2300 processor line does include support for Windows Server 2022. You can reduce your costs and your downtime. So older hardware can have risk. By upgrading to your new hardware, you can take and alleviate those. It has improved efficiencies. So as we mentioned, you've got up to 17% faster performance. So that allows you to, for the same workloads, run either at a lower CPU loading, or you can take and run more applications for the same CPU capacity. And of course, you're ready for remote management. So you get all the help with the built-in firmware support, either through SPS or through the AMT variant. But all these allow you to have a low-cost, professional-grade server with the Xeon E system. For cloud services, these are typically used in entry server, bare metal, and cloud security applications. So these are available with 4, 6, or 8 core variants, and we'll talk about those, and up to 16 threads. And the processor TDPs range from 65 watts to 95 watts. Base frequencies are as high as 3.7 gigahertz, and Turbo Boost lets you get up to 5.1 gigahertz capabilities, depending on the exact SKU that you're using. Large memory capacity, so you can have up to 128 gigabits of DDR4 ECC memory, up to 2 DIMMs per channel, and up to 3200 MTS. And as we mentioned, of course, the flexible management support with the server platform SPS firmware, and also with the Intel Management Engine version 15. So all these things allow you to take in and run at a higher level performance, higher level security. And then of course, you can also secure code and data with the SGX or software guard extensions support in the Xeon E processor line. So these are supported on just about all the Xeon processors. Typically for the larger SP processors, these are meant for higher capacities, but you can still do some capabilities such as lower capacity workloads like security key management systems. So these are available with the new Xeon E family of processors. So let's look at some detail of the processor itself. So you can go up to 8 cores. So there are 4 core, 6 core, and 8 core variants. Maximum base frequency can be up to 3.7 gigahertz. Turbo Boost can go up to 5.1 gigahertz. Has support for up to 16 megabits of Intel Smart Cache, and supports Turbo Boost 2.0 technology with hyper-threading. It's only a 1-socket design. Does go up to 95 watts TDP. It has an LGA 1200 socket that it uses. It has supports up to 2 channels of DDR4 ECC memory, up to 3200 MTS, 2 DIMM per channels, and these are UDIMM physical form factors only. For the supported chipset, it uses either the C252 or C256 chipset to support it. So for the I/O, you have 20 lanes of PCI 4.0 coming direct from the CPU. You have 24 lanes of PCI 3.0 coming from the PCH. You've got 3 ports of the USB 3.2 Gen 2x2 20 gigabit support, and you've got up to 10 ports USB 3.2 Gen 2x1 10 gigabit support. You've got to 8 ports of SATA 3.0, and there's 8 lanes of Gen 3 DMI support on the processor. We mentioned already on the firmware support. So again, you can do Intel ME version 15 on the AMT variant of the platform, and you can do Intel SPS 6.0 with Intel NM support in the normal version of the platform. We mentioned the graphics support, so you can have 1 digital display HDMI or DisplayPort with up to 4K resolution, and the Secure Enclave has 512 megabit memory support on there. For Ethernet, there's 1 gigabit I210 LOM on the platform board, and there's 2.5 gigabit Ethernet and 10 gigabit Ethernet supportable as add-in cards. And of course, this is based on Intel's 14 nanometer process technology. So those are some details of the overall platform here. So let's do a comparison to the prior platform. So the prior platform was the Intel E-2300 series. So this was based on Coffee Lake. The new version is the Intel 2300 based on Rocket Lake. So you can see it's a new socket. So we go from the LGA 1151 to the LGA 1200. We do have Gen 12 graphic support. This is the direct display only. And then on the memory channels, increase the speed up to 3200 MTS from the previous 2666 MTS speed support. We now have 20 lanes of PCI 4.0 versus 16 lanes of PCI 3.0 before. And you do have bifurcation support for 1x16, 1x4, 2x8, 1x4, 1x8, and 3x4. So lots of options that you have to be able to take and do that. On the chipset, we move from the C240 series to the C250 series, and there's 2 flavors of that. And of course, we've got increased DMI support with by 8 versus by 4 on the previous generation. Then of course, we've got faster USB support. So we've got up to 10 ports of the 3.2 Gen 2x1 10 gigabit, and up to 10 ports of that, and up to 3 ports of the USB 3.2 Gen 2x2 20 gigabit support. Now, the key thing here, of course, is that you've got up to 17% performance improvement over the prior generation. So as you see, as we move on, you're basically at the same price point as you were for the prior generation, but a 17 performance improvement. So you can get that increased performance really for no cost by moving to the new generation of processors. So that's a big benefit for everyone. All right, so here's the Skew Stack for the 2300 processors. So I'll go through these. So at the bottom end of the line, you've got the E-2300. So this gives you a base clock speed of 2.8 gigahertz and allows you a maximum turbo boost of 4.5 gigahertz. This has 4 cores and 4 thread support. And you can see it's got 8 megabits of smart cache. And this has a new lower price point than was available before. So this is at a standard retail price of $182. For the next one up is the 2324G. So this is a 3.1 base clock frequency and with a 4.6 gigahertz turbo boost frequency on this. This is again a 4-core, 4-thread, same 8 megabit smart cache. And this is also a 65-watt part. This has graphic support. This is what the G designates on all these SKUs here. The E-2334 has 3.4 gigahertz base clock speed with 4.8 gigahertz turbo frequency. And this is 4 cores, but has hyper-threading support. So has up to 8 threads support on this one. Next is the 2374G, which has 3.7 gigahertz base speed with a 4.8 gigahertz turbo boost. And this has hyper-threading also with 4 cores and 8 threads. And at the top of the 4-core variants is the 2374G, which has graphic support, also has 3.7 gigahertz base speed with a 5.0 gigahertz turbo boost available on that. And with the hyper-threading has 4 cores and 8 threads available there. This is also a slightly higher TDP. This is a 80-watt part. Next is the 2336. So this is 2.9 gigahertz base with 4.8 gigahertz turbo boost, and now has 6 cores and 12 threads. This is a 65-watt part. And you can see that next up is the 2356G, which has graphic support, 3.2 gigahertz base speed, 5.0 gigahertz turbo boost, 6 cores, 12 threads. We have the 2386G, which is 3.5 gigahertz base speed, 5.1 gigahertz turbo speed, 6 cores, 12 threads. And then the 2378 is the first with the 8 cores. So this is 2.6 gigahertz base speed, 4.8 gigahertz turbo speed, 8 cores, 16 threads. The 2378G, which has graphic support, has 2.8 gigahertz base speed, 5.1 gigahertz turbo speed, and of course 8 cores, 16 threads. And then last is the 2388G, which has graphic support, 3.2 gigahertz base speed and 5.1 gigahertz turbo boost speed with 8 cores and 16 threads, and of course 16 megabytes with the smart cache. So this shows you the whole line of the new 2300 family of processors. And as you can see, this gives you a lot of increased performance, but at the same price point you had for the previous generation. So a lot of capability here and a lot of benefits for all our customers with this. So that's a list of the Skew Stack. We do have a wide variety of partners offering systems with this. So you can see the list of a bunch of them on here. I won't go through the list, but of course, as you would expect, we have all the major OEMs taking and supporting this. A number of other tier vendors on here also, a number of cloud hosting capabilities here for that bare metal hosting we talked about. So some of these systems have launched, some of them are still yet to launch, but we would recommend you take and contact these vendors directly in terms of their availability of systems for this. But as you can see, as we had with the prior generation, there's a wide range of partners offering systems here to take advantage of the Xeon E2300 series of processors. So that's a real quick run through of the things that we have. To recap some of those, we have essential performance, expandability, and reliability for the entry servers. So, we've got improved features with the performance, the expandability, the better manageability. It's a better value. We have up to 17% performance improvement over the prior generation. It's the same price points as the prior generation. And as you saw, there's broad ecosystem support for this. And we've got a wide variety of resources available. So if you go to the Intel website, go to intel.com, Xeon E, and there's a bunch of resources there. So there's a 3330 presentation. There's a product brief available there. And that 3330 presentation really has most of the content that you're seeing in this presentation here. And then of course, there's a full product brief and other information, more details on each of the specific product SKUs are available there. So I think this is most of the content that we wanted to cover. Let's see, do we have any questions that we want to take an answer here?
Thank you, Brian. So as you mentioned there, let's take some time to review some of the questions. Please reminder, if you would like to address your question, please submit it now by launching the Q&A feature at the bottom of your console. First question, Brian. Will Intel have server motherboards that support this processor? I currently don't see anything on the website.
So by server motherboards, I assume they mean Intel directly sold ones. So those typically come from the DSG division. So I don't think they've announced a 2300 supported platform yet, but they may be doing that soon. So I would recommend that you can contact that division directly, and we can help get you the direct contacts there. But I don't think they've launched their version yet for that.
Thank you, Brian. There was an earlier question around how could folks get the materials or download the slide deck. And so I can, Jody answered this in the chat, but let me just pop this up here. So there will be a PDF of today's slide deck made available in the on-demand course in Intel's Partner University. Once it's ready, this typically takes 3 to 7 days usually. If you're registered through our email invitation process, you will receive a follow-up email when the link is ready. Okay. Follow-up question, Brian. So there's a question around our graphics support. So could you please explain direct graphics versus no graphics support, CPU Xeon support?
So the direct graphics means that if you look at the CPU and PCH chipset, that off the PCH, there's a graphics out on there that you can use directly from that. So that's the capability there. What we don't have is expanded graphics support, such as support for GPU acceleration cards on the platform itself. But there is direct graphics support out, so you can get that to go to a local display as opposed to something over a network. Then, of course, there also is graphics support for system debug. So there is a console, of course, separate from this, that you can do server management type functions through that, but that's separate from the direct graphics that we talk about in the presentation.
Thank you, Brian. I will do another call for questions, please.
Okay.
Let's answer your burning questions, folks. You can use either the chat function or the Q&A function.
Right. I guess I'd also mention, as we've mentioned, a lot of this material is available on the Intel website. So if you think of something later that you'd like to look up, that's available there. Or, we're of course available that you can send questions to us later on. Be happy to answer those for anything that someone may think of later they didn't think to ask of during the webinar.
There's a follow-up question here. Any discussions on the supply chain given the current processor shortages, Brian?
So of course, supply chain issues are something that everyone's working through at the moment, as are we. But I believe that we do currently have a supply of this processor available right now. It will obviously depend on what you're looking for, which specific SKU, and how many of them. So if you want 100,000 of them, that's a big different question than you want 10 of them. But general supply should be available, and I know that they are available both on the tray format and on the boxed individual format. So we do have supply available. Obviously, it will depend on what exactly you're looking for. And then, of course, supply for systems from our partners will really depend on them individually in terms of what they have. But I don't see that we have any specific supply constraints on this processor family compared to the overall supply situation out there.
Follow-up question, Brian, on availability. So you hit on it when you mentioned on the logo wall, but some of our partners already have launched systems, and some are to be followed up. Can you give a little more context on that, a little more details?
Sure. So some of our partners have already launched systems. I don't know, do we specifically take and quote which partners we know of have launched already, or certainly we can't talk about ones that haven't launched yet. They're still in the process of that.
Sure. So we know. So Dell has launched, and Supermicro systems, and some of our other partners have systems out there.
Correct. Yeah. So those are ones. I mean, if you look back at the page that we had with the different partners, you can go to their websites and look at those. But as Siobhan mentioned, we do know that Dell, Supermicro, and some others have already launched systems.
I'll do a final call for questions. Okay. Oh, hang on. Last call came in. So question, Brian. So for video streamer servers, is it better with graphics or not?
I think it comes down to the individual performance things you're looking for. So I don't think the graphic support really makes better a difference really in terms of video streaming performance. So it looked on the individual SKU. So if you want to go to the highest performance SKU, the 2388G, that does have graphic support on it, but you really would be getting that for the performance of it as opposed to the built-in graphic supports. Because for your video streaming, that built-in graphic supports for local display, it's not going to make any difference for your video streaming performance. So I would say look at the CPU that's getting you the performance level that you're looking for and go for that. So you might, and depending on what your specific application is, a 4-core application might even be good enough depending on how many concurrent streams you're looking at supplying with that. So the graphic support really is for a local display, doesn't really impact your performance for doing video streaming.
Okay. Oh, sorry. Every time I say okay. So I've got another one here, Brian. So when matched with specific boards, how will the driver and utility software support cover Microsoft versus Linux OS?
Right. So certainly from Intel, we are supplying the support for Windows, specifically, Windows 2019 and Windows 2022. We're also supporting the major Linux OS releases. So from the CPU standpoint, those are covered. You would really need to work with a specific platform vendor that you're buying the system from in terms of what specific utilities they're using for that, because different vendors have their own different utilities in terms of how they do updates, how they do management, et cetera. So that really would be dependent upon the vendor that you work with. But certainly the base drivers and OS support is all there for the 2300 series family. So if there's a specific version, et cetera, we can look that up and get back to you on that. But certainly for all the major releases, we do have support both on the Windows Server side and on the Linux side.
There is a follow-up on that one, Brian, about what about
Right.
Intel server boards?
So I think this is similar to a question that we talked about earlier. So if you're talking about Intel server boards directly from Intel, those are from the DSG division, and they currently have some boards supporting Xeon E. I don't think they've launched a Xeon E 2300 compatible board yet. So that's something that they may be planning to do shortly, but right now it's not available on the Intel specific board for that. And if you send us your information, we can hook you up with the direct person to talk to for that if you're interested in that.
Okay. So thank you, Brian. I think that concludes today's presentation. In case you missed it, you may download this again from our partner university. As we said, it can take about 3 to 7 business days to be populated. And if you registered, you will receive an email. This concludes today's webinar. We greatly appreciate you joining. We hope that this information today was useful to you, and we look forward to seeing you again at one of our future partner webinars. Thank you very much.
Thank you.